I'd like to again welcome Atley Hunter and hand it over to Atley. So go ahead, Atley, it's all yours.
Thank you very much. Very glad to be here today, and I'd like to just start off by saying I'm here to try and give some information to you guys, so if there are any questions you have, please don't hesitate to ask them as soon as possible. I don't depend on slides for my presentation, so there's only a few slides in this. Most of this will be informational, and so if you want to take notes, if you have any questions, my contact information will be in several places throughout the presentation. So always feel free to reach out and ask any questions if you weren't clear about something, or if you've missed something, or if you have any other questions. I really enjoy helping developers, and I spend a fair bit of time talking to developers every day. So as Robin said, that I have been developing software for quite a long time. I've been writing mobile apps since way before it was cool. I started off writing Palm Pilot apps and apps for Windows Mobile, and I even wrote a couple of Newton apps, and I did a number of different things all the way through, right on up through BlackBerry and iOS and Android and Windows Phone. I spend most of my time writing Windows Phone apps now, and it is how I make all of my living. I spend all of my time writing apps and coming up with new ideas and working on new strategies. So this conversation is about what I have found here so far and what I've discovered. This talk is an evolving talk as I learn new things all the time, and as I extend my knowledge, I try to share it with you guys as much as possible. So the main focus here, and this is not just a Windows Phone or a Windows talk. This is if you're trying to make money with mobile apps on any platform, these same rules and strategies and ideas will apply. So the first thing that I always tell developers when they're trying to decide about what to do with their app is decide what your success is. Figure out what actually will constitute success for you with your app. That can change both through your development cycle, through your application's life cycle, or as you meet deadlines or as you meet goals. So your first goal may end up being, I just want to get an app in the store, and I want to see how many people will download it. And then your next goal might be, I want 500 people using my software, because that'd be really cool. Because for a lot of us that work day to day writing software for companies and corporations, it's quite often that our software will be used by maybe 50 to 100 people. To have 500 or 1,000 or 5,000 people using your software is kind of an interesting thing. So as you reach these different goals, it's perfectly all right to set new ones, but you do have to realize that as you set new goals, sometimes your scope and scale will change. So one of the things that I find from the developers will say to me quite often is they'll say, well, the platform sucks, or this sucks, or this is horrible because I put my app in the store and I haven't made any money. And I usually answer that with a question about what they've done since they've released the software. What I have found is that writing an app and putting it in the store is about 30 to 40% of the actual job if you're trying to make money with a piece of software. One of the things that I find that a lot of people don't realize is that when you're writing an app, you're actually making a retail product. You're putting it in a store. So it's very similar as to creating a new style of clothing or a new tangible good in other realms, where when you create it and you put it in the store, it may not be perfect right off the bat. You may have to tweak it. You may have to change the way you sell it, the way you market it, the way you present it to the users in order for them to see it. And if you start thinking about your software that way when you're trying to make money with it, you'll find that there's an awful lot more information that you can get, and there's an awful lot more things that you can lean on as far as making yourself more successful. One of the things, this talk is only about an hour long, but there are an awful lot of things that can be added to the amount of information I can give you here. But we'll go through as quickly as possible. So,
Hey, Atley.
there are several different. Yes.
Sorry, I just want to interrupt. Remember to turn on your cam since you don't have many slides.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
Your,
Okay. Yeah. Sorry,
your
my
wonderful
apologies.
face.
Yes, I'll do that. Hey guys. So, one of the interesting things that, or one of the most popular ways of trying to make money with a mobile application is by placing ads in the application. Now, there are several different ways to make money with mobile applications. Ads are not the only one. They are definitely one type of strategy for making money. Now, ads can serve one of a couple of different purposes. In some cases, the ads can create reasonable income on their own. In other cases, ads tend to be more of almost like a red herring to have the users want to buy a feature packet that will include extra features in the app and also getting rid of the ads. Now, the reason I say that is that from what I have found, there's an awful lot of things that most developers don't realize about ads. I've found that about 1 to 3% of the ads placed in mobile applications actually end up paying anybody. And the reason being is that there are a lot of rules in what constitutes an ad impression when it comes to mobile applications. One of the biggest things is placement, how it's placed and what impact that has on it. Now, when you're designing your application, if you're designing it for monetization, with monetization in mind, you will have to design it a little bit differently. You have to think about that in relationship to the architecture of your application as a whole. If you're trying to make money with ads, from what I've found, the absolute worst place you can put the ad is in the top of your application. The reason being is that the top of the application is where toast notifications, system notifications, dialog boxes, things like that pop up and end up covering all or part of the ad. Now, if any part of the ad is covered at all for a split second while that ad is showing, that ad impression does not count for your monetization from any of the platforms. It doesn't matter what platform, what ad supplier, who's doing it. There are a couple of them that have a couple of rules where they say, well, if you cover it for a certain amount of time, we will, or if it's visible for most of the time, then we'll give you a partial or we'll give you the full thing, but then you can't show another ad for a certain period of time. It won't count. There's a number of different rules that come into play here. The biggest one is obstruction. If your ad is obstructed in any particular way by anything in the system, it will count as a null view. Now, that you may think doesn't really matter because the users will be using your app. There'll be thousands of users using your app, and they use it several times a day. The problem is that there is a formula used by the advertising groups or the advertising providers that is structured to make sure that they are able to offer the best value for their customer base, which their customer base isn't you. The customer base is the people that are supplying the ads that they're now marketing to you to allow you to put in your applications. Now, in order to properly monetize this and properly take advantage of all of the impressions that you'll show in the app, you need to be thinking about where these ads get placed and how to properly situate them so that they're placed in a stable, clear, unobstructed position in your app. Now, Having a few of them obstructed may not seem like a big deal, but what happens is the way that advertising is handled in applications is it's almost like real estate. You are trying to create what is basically prime real estate in your application for these ads. The average eCPM, which is the estimated cost per bill or per thousand impressions, is between 8 and 24 cents for most apps, for many apps. I would say about 90% of the apps in the marketplaces, all the marketplaces. Now, that can be drastically changed. My average eCPM for ads is anywhere between $2 and $21, which is a drastic difference. And the reason being is because I've been examining how these things work, and I've been trying to make sure that my apps create prime real estate for these ads to show. Now, by prime real estate, it pretty much goes along the same things that you would think about for normal real estate. If it's an app where people like to use it and they're going to use it for long periods of time, that ad real estate is more valuable. If it's an unobstructed and clear viewing, it's like an oceanfront view. If it's got a beautiful view and nothing's blocking it, guess what? That's prime real estate. If there's things that are popping up all over it, it will drastically affect the way that the ads influence your eCPM. So, when you're designing your application, if you're going to put ads in, and if your design only will let the ads be at the top, then you have to realize the impact that this will have on your monetization. And in that case, that's where I mentioned earlier, sometimes ads end up being part of the red herring to get users to buy the upgrade or the freemium model to buy other features or to deactivate ads and things like that. That is sort of one of the things that you have to look at what your purpose is for the app. If the design is more important than the money, then you go design focused. If your money is more important than creating one specific type of design, then you look at how you can monetize it. It's like anything else in business. It's like anything in software that we do as well. You have give and takes in everything, and you have to look at what the return on the investment is for each particular portion or facet of your application. So, with that being said, if you're looking at some of these new models like, let's say, Continuum, some of these new Windows application models where the ads will end up changing or moving, one of the things you're going to want to make sure that you're doing is when your app is changing or moving, you make sure the ad moves first. It's one of the first things that moves, therefore it's not obstructed by other things. It then has a more stable viewpoint for the application, and your eCPM will continue to stay unaffected or minimally affected by the fact that the UI changes. Now, and with all platforms, if you have an application where the pages change frequently, and that's a lot of applications where you'll have a list of items and then you click and you see details on another page. If you have ads on the list page and then ads on the detail page, you'd think, well, that's good, I'm showing ads all the time. The interesting thing is that if you have an ad showing on a page and then you flip to another page, unless they stay on that page for the full period of time that the ad is supposed to show, if they flip back too soon, your ad doesn't count. So a lot of these apps that have lists and then ads on both the list and the detail page, you'll find that they have an awful lot lower eCPM than you would expect, or they make an awful lot less money than you would expect because of this factor. So I've actually got an example of two applications here that have similar usage times. So the amount of time that the users use each app is similar. They both have fairly long usage time, And so for them, it makes sense to have ads in them because if the user is going to be in the app for a long period of time and you're able to show several ads, then that ends up triggering to the ad supplier that this is a valuable app because you get lots of views. So in this particular application, um, interesting. I thought this was already loaded up. Okay. In this particular application, it's got a number of different television shows and things that are coming up. And as you can see, I have an ad at the bottom, but I've made the first mistake is I have a thing that pops up over top of the ad. Even though I've put the ad at the bottom to keep it from being at the top, I've actually created a pop-up, which is a really cool little animation to show you that it's updating the information for the show. But right now, it's making sure that that ad is worth nothing. The user's seeing most of the ad, but I'm not getting paid for any of it.
So actually, Atley,
Yeah.
because of GoToWebinar, we're still just seeing the loading channels right now. So give it.
Oh, okay.
There we go. Okay.
Sorry.
There we go. Now we can see
Okay.
the ad.
Okay, sorry about that, guys. Okay, so as you can see, you've got this little view at the bottom that shows that it's updating the show info. Now that's now blocked the ads, so the ads are not paying me anything, but they're being shown. Now the interesting thing is this ad now is fully showing, but because my pop-up blocked it, that ad didn't count at all. This ad will count. But the problem is that if I now click and open this up, I thought I was being very smart by putting an ad in on the bottom here, and kind of I am, but not with the amount of information that's on this page because it's got a couple of details, but if that synopsis is really short, they're not going to spend much time reading it. So guess what? I didn't get paid for that ad or for the one that popped up. So now I've shown 3 ads.
Atley, sorry, we're still on the list page here. GoToWebinar. There we go. Okay.
Sorry.
As soon as I say something, now it's on the detail page.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay. So, okay, so now when the detail page pops up, there's an ad there. When the ad is shown there, unless the user stays there for the period of time expected to show a full ad to get the full value, then it doesn't pay. So with this application, even though it has a fairly high user base, and the amount of time the average user spends in it is actually surprisingly high for what it is, this app does not make anywhere near the kind of money that I wanted it to. Now, I have another app that has a similar concept, and so you can just tell me when this pops up.
Yep, still waiting for it. It just takes a little while.
Mm-hmm.
So when you were saying, okay, so we got the splash screen. When you're saying it has to be up for a certain amount of time, is that different how long it needs to be shown for each user, depending on the platform and depending on a bunch of other variables, or is that
there are some variables, and you do have to check with your ad provider. They're usually fairly consistent around it has to show for at least 10 seconds. It's a surprising amount of time that the ad sits there for it to count. And so when you look at that factor, you have to realize that that factor accounts greatly for how much value the ads have for showing in your app. Now, in this particular app, because of the design, I have the ads at the top, but if you notice, the ads are moved down so that they're actually out of the range of where toast notifications will pop up in them. So what I've done is I've made sure that most of the ads will actually count, as many as I can. Of course, ones when a pop-up dialog come up will not count, but those are much less common and much more in my control than the standard toast notification that if you're looking at a teenager's phone is coming up constantly. Now this particular application, if you'll notice, this will have a number of different screens that come up off of the list.
Yeah, we still have the list here for a second. There we go. So it's loading messages.
Yeah.
There you go. loaded.
Okay, so in this one, you'll notice that my list load was there. I then loaded the detail, but it never changed the ad. The screen hasn't changed. Everything's happened out of the range of where the ad is. Now, this particular app has about 1% of the users that the television app has, yet makes 50 times the money. So just to let that sink in, that's the difference that it makes.
So my question: have you thought about going back to the TV ad and re-architecting the UI to take advantage of?
Of course, no, of course, of course. The main there is a new version of the TV app coming out that'll be a UWP app that will have a much different UI. But yes, definitely. But as a demonstration purpose, this is literally a perfect example of the part where of the concept where having the ad simply in one place and popping up new ads and having new flip screens and things like that can end up costing you money, drastic amounts of money. So if you're thinking about making money with the ads, you have to architect with the idea of making money with the ads. And so it really is down to what is your monetization schema, what is your goal with the application. If your goal with the application is to make money, then that has to be your starting point. You always start with your goal in mind. If you don't have a goal in mind when you start, you can never ever be successful. So if you haven't picked out what the actual success is, you will never be able to possibly reach it. So that to me sort of embodies most of what I'm trying to portray or trying to tell you about the ads, is that placement, understanding of what the UI can do to your eCPM or to your monetization strategies, and making sure that your architect for it can make all of the difference in the world. So do we have any questions here? No, we don't. Okay, so now there are a number of different ways that ads can be shown, and there's a number of different ad types. One of the things you do have to realize, though, is that from what I've found on all platforms, you have to make sure that you're properly handling things like error handling and issues with connectivity for the ads, because the ads are retrieved through data. And when they're retrieved through data, there are then a whole new set of issues that come into play. And for myself, I find that the highest percentage of the errors that occur in my application are actually caused by ads not being properly supplied to the devices, or connectivity or other errors otherwise that I can't really control other than to properly handle what's going on with the ad controls. I find that in some cases it's much more advantageous to have a check for connectivity, and if there's no connectivity available, forcing the ad control to only show a local image of something that I'm trying to show it for an ad, like for one of my own applications or something like that. Something that I can source locally, so that I can make sure that I'm not depending on any poor connectivity that might be a factor. So other monetization schemes. There are a number of ways to make money with apps, and the first thing that you have to realize is that you are not set to any one plan or any one methodology. You can look at several different options, and there are lots of different things that you can do to set yourself out from the crowd. There are an awful lot of applications out there on all the platforms, and the big thing now is it's very similar to being in a retail store or in a retail mall. You have to set yourself up. You have to set yourself aside, make yourself seem unique or at least somehow compelling to the users in everything in your store page, your screenshots that you provide, the tile or the icon that you use, the description that you make, the keywords that you use. All of these things are things that you need to examine and understand so that you can make sure that they work for you instead of against you. I find that I will change periodically. I will change descriptions. I will change keywords. I will change different things. If you think that there is going to be a time when you can just put your application in and you're done and that's all you need to do, you'll probably find that you're never going to be quite as successful as you want to be. There is a fair bit of work needed to be done to keep the users engaged, to keep them coming back and to keep fostering new business relationships. Now, when it comes to design, there's a lot of things you can do to handle how users do different things. And so I'll ask you, because you're the only person that can actually talk back to me right now, what do you see on this screen? Anything stick out?
There's 4 sections. It's
Mm-hmm.
high contrast. The footprints obviously kind of stand out to me. The button down at the bottom looks a little weird, the settings button, because it's half black, half white. What else am I looking for?
I don't know. If that's all that stands out for you?
We got some buttons, obviously, some text. And I'm guessing by the title, it's going to be a game where I don't step on the white tiles and just step on the black.
Yep. So on that screen, that's all that stood out for you.
And the red monkey, the red kind of looks a little different because it's color. It's the only color on the screen.
Exactly. Now, what would you do with that screen? What would be?
Probably click one of the buttons in the bottom right, either timed run or distance run.
Yep, to play the game. Now, what about the monkey? What would you do with regards to the monkey?
I'd probably press it because I have no idea what it does, and what's the risk? Let's see what it does.
Exactly. See what it does. So this is an example of leading your audience or leading the witness, to say, to coin a Law and Order phrase, to give the user something that's compelling and something that's apt to make them do the thing that you want them to do. Okay. There are a lot of different ways that you can use items in your design and in your overall layout to entice the user towards the actions that you want. Now, what do you think that button does?
Judging by the presentation, I'm guessing show an ad. It's an ad, but other than that, in the context of the game, I have no idea. Maybe you get hearts when you play the game, like as kind of like coins or something like that. Just a guess. Having never played it and never seen it, I don't really have any context for it.
Fair enough. So, have you ever seen
or it's a monkey? Maybe it opens the Xamarin site.
It's actually funny because I had that monkey before I'd ever heard of Xamarin. Have you ever seen the donation page in an app?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. And what can you describe what a donation page looks like? What do you think a donation page looks like?
It's been a long time since I think I've seen one. I'm guessing something asking for a donation of, send us some money kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Would be my guess.
So what would you think? A button saying, "Give me $1" or something, or?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. Have you ever donated?
No. Don't really see a lot of them iOS or Android. Like I don't remember seeing those in apps that much.
No?
Not that I've
Okay.
run across.
Hmm. Okay. Fair enough.
Lots of in-app
So,
purchases. Give me 99 cents for this feature, or more coins, or anything like that. See that a
oh,
lot.
of course, and that's a very common thing too. But in some cases, um, you'll find that people, and this is actually something that came to me from users sending me messages, sending me feedback, going, "How can I donate money? I like this game, and I want to see you write more games or apps. How do I donate money to help support it?" Um, and I've even had people offer to pay me, which I think is really cute or really funny because they'll say, "Well, I would pay you if you put this feature." And I'm like, "Well, how much would you pay me?" And they're like, "I'd pay you like $1." And I thought that was pretty funny because that made my work seem like it didn't cost a lot to do. But it was a nice gesture. So what I tried doing was putting in a donation page in this app, and so what I did was I came up with I looked at a couple of other apps and I'd seen other donation pages, and they always struck me as being very, very similar. They had a little blurb that said, "Hey, help support the developer," um, and they'd have a thing saying, "Hey, can you, 99 cents, press here if you like the app." And in some cases I had donated, in other cases I hadn't. So I thought I'd try something different. I got a chance to sit with a scientist who studied how the human eye and the human brain work together to help us understand what we see. And it was a very, very valuable conversation. I learned a lot of things, and I played around with a lot of the information that he gave me and experimented with a lot of things. And this is one of those experiments. So what strikes you on this page? Does anything stand out?
The first thing that my eye caught was the yellow bananas on the blue background. Um, so there's a bunch of text at the top, and let's see, it's all positive words. So I like it, awesome, love it, oh my god. And you can remove ads by donating.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So those are kind of all
So
the things
this
that.
is also another tactic of paying for having the ads removed, but making it seem like it's not paying just to have the ads removed. You're donating because you like the app. So it's a different way of phrasing basically the same thing. Now, I could have just charged 99 cents to remove ads, which is what a lot of apps do, right?
Yep.
And if I had done that, then I would get a certain number of people giving me 99 cents. The interesting thing is that the number of people that would give 99 cents to remove ads is sort of a reasonably calculable amount of people for a user base. The interesting thing is that as soon as you give people a list of things to think about, they think about them differently than they would think about 99 cents. If I put 99 cents there, what would you have done?
I see. So if you're willing to give 99 cents, you will, but you might have been willing to give 4.99, and if you only give them one choice, then you're missing out on $4 worth of value that they might have given you if you only give
And
them the
that's
one choice.
exactly. And at the simplest point, the very worst that could happen is somebody, maybe only one person gives me $1.99, but at least I made more money from that person than I would have made otherwise. The bigger value here is the fact that you actually have to spend more time looking at this page than you would if it just said, "Hey, give me 99 cents, please donate." Donate 99 cents. It's a yes or no answer. A yes or no answer is a fairly simple thing, and it's a fairly quick process. As soon as you offer someone three or more choices, it drastically changes the the way the mind thinks. of what they're seeing. It actually changes the inflection of whether it's a yes or no question to a how much. Because now 0 becomes one of 5 choices, not one of 2. So it changes the way you look at it. It changes the way the user analyzes it. It also changes the perspective of the choice. The perspective of the choice is not, no, I don't want to give you money. It's now, how much money do I want to give you? Even if the answer is 0, it's still how much. And it's not, no, I don't want to give you money.
Yeah, it's really easy to just say no without even thinking. Like you said, it's really easy to just automatically
it can be reflective.
Click. Yeah, just reflex just to click that no button and move on.
And it changes the reflex action. Now, so there's a number of things on this page that lead it to being a very successful way of making money in this particular app. You'll notice that there are no dollar signs. And there's also no mention of money on the page. There's mentions of donations, and there's also positive reinforcement of reward by mentioning food. Similar fact that other people have used is, hey, buy me a beer, or buy me a coffee if you like this app. Similar concept. By taking away the fact that it's money or mentioning money, it changes the way you think about it. It takes the harshness of the decision away from the user, and it takes some of the stress off of it. And it makes it less of a reflex action and more of a thought.
It's like a high-end restaurant.
Exactly. Well, and it's like a lot of things. If you look at a lot of stores will take away the dollar signs. They will also change the way that they reflect things, and we'll show that a little bit more here as well. Now, also, all of those buttons for donating money are right smack dab where the thumb sits. It is a lot easier to give me money on this page than it is to not give me money on this page. The X to close the window is way up at the top of the screen. Horrible UI, horrible UX. But in this case, it makes sense. Or you can stretch your finger down and touch the back button, which isn't horribly uncomfortable or whatever, but your thumb is already right there. So that is also by design. So when you're thinking about how you're laying out your in-app purchases, if you're thinking about how to handle money transactions with the users, always be thinking that your UX needs to make the money transaction as stress-free and as physically easy as possible. People are going to put in very, very little effort to give you money. One of my biggest beefs is when the phone company or something screws up something and I have to chase them down to give them money, because nobody likes to chase someone down to give them money. I mean, we barely like to chase someone down to get money from them, right? So by making it simple, easy, comfortable to do, you're more likely to get it. Now, the interesting thing is, what do you think the most common donation is from this page?
I would guess $1.99.
No, you're close, but no.
$2.99.
The most common donation is $2.99.
Huh.
And do you know why that is?
No.
Because 87% of people are right-handed. So your eyes will fall on that $2.99 about 1,000 times more than they will fall on any of the other ones. So it will be your resting spot for your eye will be just to the right of center.
That's really interesting that people are that reflexive and in spending their money just because it's simpler. It's just
But the thing
weird.
is, all of these things combine to be factors in how it works. Okay, any single one of them, it is um, like taking any one of the points away, and you diminish the percentage of money you make and the impact that it has. So it's a number of different components, right? So there's several different components here. There is the fact that 99 cents is the only two-digit and a decimal point. It is a single banana. Even 1.99 is 3 bananas, so it seems much, much more than even double what 99 cents is. 2.99 is 5 bananas. Seems like a much bigger thing, right? So all of these things are factors in creating this particular monetization scheme and helping it work. Also, the fact that up at the top, I'm talking about donations are an important way that I earn bananas to keep Mrs. Monkey and I happy in creating great new apps for your devices. I make sure that they realize that they're dealing with people. They're not dealing with a corporation. They're not dealing with, this is not Rivo trying to get an extra dollar from them. This is a person that's just doing this to make money. And honestly, that's exactly what it is. So I'm just letting them know a little bit more about it and humanizing the effect so that it becomes a more comfortable situation.
Yeah, and Josh has a good point too that there's a $2 difference between the $2.99 and the $4.99. It's not just a $1; it's a $2. So people will probably look at that last one and realize they can go just one step down and it's $2 cheaper, and that seems like a better deal for them. So they're going to pick the $2.99 as opposed to going all the way down to the $99 or the $1.99.
Yeah,
we had a couple of questions too. How are you accepting money with these? Do they go to like PayPal, or are they in-app purchases, or once they click that, what happens?
This is just an in-app purchase, and this works on all platforms to do the same thing. So it's an in-app purchase. It's done through the store, just like any other in-app purchase. It's just this is the UI that this is just a way of presenting this instead of making it, hey, give me 99 cents to get rid of the ads. And it is much more successful.
Yeah, so because it's an in-app purchase, you don't get all that money. You get a cut of the money.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Some platforms have a big problem with you going outside to go to PayPal or things like that for money. So this ends up being also, I would rather not deal with the back and forth of issues with, people going, oh, well, I decided not to donate and this and that. So one of the things I really like is I've been in developing apps for a long time, and I had to go through the times when you had to use Handygo and Pocket Now and a bunch of different stores and manage it all yourself, and it was a nightmare. So the fact that at least that piece of it is taken is a big time saver and a big it helps that it's easily worth the 30%, 30 cents on the dollar to me. So I have no problem with that. Plus, I also factor that in when I'm pricing things.
Right? And another reason to steer people towards the bigger one.
Exactly.
Bigger money one. Yeah, and so the screen here is just your custom UI to represent the in-app purchase, and then once they click one of those, they're going to get, like on iOS, they would get the
it would go straight to the store to buy the purchase. Yes.
The alert view that says, "Do you really want to pay however much here?"
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So, and this is a very, I found that this has been a much more successful methodology of doing it than just saying, hey, pay to get rid of the ads. If you're giving a good user experience and you're giving good user support, you'll find that you'll create a great relationship with your users. One of the things that really sort of created the vast difference between being I develop on the evenings or on the weekends and I make a couple of dollars, like I make some, I make some lunch money, or I made enough money to buy myself a new car stereo this year. Between that and being to the point where I can say, well, I'm just going to do this now, and just work at home and I do this and I have a great time. The first thing that created that ability was actively getting feedback from the users. Like not just making it so that users can give you feedback, but actively trying to get it. So putting in your application, are you happy with the application? Would you give it a good rating if asked? And if they say no, then you ask them for feedback. What can I do to make it better? I'm here for you guys. I want you guys to let me know. And I get a lot of emails, but it's incredibly valuable. I have absolutely no qualms with the thousands of emails I get, because it really does help me to better focus and understand what the users want, because I've developed a lot of software. I think I'm working on my 813th app right now. And when it comes right down to it, out of all those apps, I put down all the features that I think an app needs, and then I develop basically a minimum viable product, and I push it out and get as much user feedback as I can to try and extend and increase the development of the application. And I've never actually guessed the first 3 features the users want in the right order, ever. Like, I mean, the things that I think they want, like I might get maybe 1 or 2 of them in my list, but they'll be way down at the bottom. I won't like, that nobody cares about that, but I want to put it in. That's kind of cool, but it's probably not that important. And then it'll be the next thing that they're clamoring for. So doing that creates this user experience and this relationship with the users that allows you to do things like this, and you end up with a user base that gets very loyal, and you can really depend on them for help. I've probably got about 300 users, depending on what I'm building, that I can choose from, that I can go in and say, hey, do you want to beta test this? I'm doing this kind of game, or I'm doing that. And they're like, yeah, cool, great. And it's fantastic because these are users. These are not other developers. Other developers are great, and it's fantastic to get feedback from them. But sometimes nothing will beat the kind of feedback you're going to get from the person that's going to do things to your app that you never even considered doing, right? Because we've all known someone at work, someone that we know that you can hand them a piece of software and they immediately break it. Like, just well, I pushed that and then this. And they're like, but why did you do that? Because that's how they looked at it and that's how they saw it. And that's how we learn to build better software and a better user experience. So someone is asking, do I offer free apps for this? Harry, what do you mean, do I offer free apps for doing the beta testing?
And while you're waiting for an answer for that, I had a question too.
Yeah.
I assume you have analytics in there somewhere too, so you can actually see what screens people are doing and what they click on and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, definitely. Analytics are incredibly important. So what you want to do is you want to get feedback from the users, but you also want to get as much feedback about how the users are using your software. I've used analytics to find out how users use the software so I can improve the software without them even really giving me the direct feedback, because, for example, I had a piece of software or an app that I wrote where the analytics told me that people would push one button, go to a screen, push the back button, push the button beside it, go to another screen. And they would do this 3 or 4 times, and then I would never see that particular user in the analytics again. So what I realized after a while was, well, people are doing this and then getting annoyed and just never using my app again. So what happened was, it turned out that the way I positioned the buttons for the navigation through the application, the users instinctively thought it was going to be on the, like, I just literally swapped the two buttons in place, because what happened was people were pushing one button thinking it was going to be the button that was beside it, and it wasn't. They would have to go back and then go to the screen that, go back to that screen and push the right button, and it was frustrating them because just the way that I had placed the controls in the UI, it wasn't intuitive, or their muscle memory wasn't stimulated properly by it, right? The button wasn't where they were expecting it to be. So by moving that, the application got much more successful, and I stopped seeing that entire range of actions. So analytics on page navigation and errors, as well as page navigation, is a huge thing, because seeing how people navigate through the pages can sometimes completely change your ideas and your architecture of how to lay out the information and properly provide it. Because if you see people doing the same motions 3 or 4 times, sometimes you take information from those 2 or 3 screens and put them together and give a much better UI, and it can end up creating a much better experience, and thereby end up making you more money.
Great. So we're getting close to the hour mark, so I want to get through some of these questions here. And
okay, perfect.
There are some that are kind of related to each other. So back to Harry's original question, do you offer free apps for this? He's basically asking, what's the price for the users? Is it free for the users and then it's all supported by ads? Or do you charge like 99 cents per app and then also have ads?
It really depends on the app. It really depends on the app. And in today's market, I found that the buy this app outright and then go from there tends to get much fewer downloads than an application that's free and then offers other features. One of the things that I find in the feedback I get from users is that if you charge someone for an app and then try to get in-app purchases out of them afterwards, some of them get really mad about that. So be cautious of how you're going to price it so that you don't price yourself out of the good graces of your clientele. So maybe in some cases, and I'm not saying don't have an application where you buy it first and then you go in. That can work, but I found it to be less effective than having something that's free and either has ads or offers other features or other components for an elevated price point. But there's no one schema that I found that works for all apps. You really have to.
And Chris kind of has a follow-up question to that too. Is it better to use in-app purchases to unlock extra features in an app, or give them free access for a certain amount of time or maybe an amount of usage, so 10 free searches, and then require them to purchase more usage, kind of like the Candy Crush, buy more coins to do this more thing, or in-app purchases?
So I found that there's a number of different ways to use some of these features. So yes, I have apps that have things where you have to buy more coins to continue playing. But one of the things I found is that if you want people to buy more coins, be prepared to give away about 150% of the amount of coins away that you want them to purchase. And don't give it to them in big bunches, but always make sure that there's always ways to get free coins. Get them to free coins if they share it on one of the screenshots of their score on Twitter or Facebook. Free coins if they do this, and try and market so that the free coins are them doing something that helps you. Free coins to watch an interstitial ad, so one of those full screen ads. Free coins for that. Free coins for coming back and playing every day. I have a series of applications where the users tend to play them for a fair number of minutes a day, and they play them pretty much every day because I tell them, come back every day, and every day you'll get more and more coins. And I literally just let it keep multiplying up every single day, more and more, and I don't care because guess what? It's imaginary money I made up. I can give away as much as I want. It doesn't cost me anything. The interesting thing is in those apps, the ads themselves, you can't get rid of the ads. Even if you buy coins, the ads are still there, and they're built into the UI, so they're not obtrusive. They're not the kind of thing that will take away from the UI drastically, but those apps make a ton of money in ads. They blow the roof off in ad revenue, and then the in-app purchase revenue is sometimes incidental because they make more money in ads than they make in in-app purchases, or they make close to the same, and so it ends up being a win-win situation.
Great. So for the hour, we only have about 3 minutes left. If anybody wants to or needs to leave, that's fine. We do record all these. We'll get them up as soon as possible if you want to watch that. We still have a lot more questions, though, so if it's all right with you, Atley, I'd like to go through and just answer those. But I totally understand if anybody needs to take off.
Oh, of course. I don't mind staying on for a while longer if you want.
Excellent. Great. All right, so a couple people had questions. I'm going to put them all together. Robert asked, where do you come up with your ideas? And Daniel says, do you currently build apps for others or just focus on your own ideas? And Jonathan asks, can you talk about the concept to validation iteration within your apps? How long do you take for each step, and when do you know an application is validated enough by customers to make it worth the development time? So kind of how do you think of this stuff?
Okay. For me, it's kind of an illness. I actually have to actively try not to think of app ideas. And friends of mine that know me, they know that I'm a little crazy about it. I think I see the world basically in apps, which can be. It was really awesome when I started and is almost maddening now. But when I look at things, I look at what the goal is for it. Sometimes the goal of the app is to just help people, so I put it out and build it as economically and as efficiently as possible so that I can get it out and do something. When it comes to my own apps, I look at how I'm going to monetize it, and then I look at what it will take to build it, what technologies are available, whether the technologies that are available are going to give the experience that I want. So, for example, certain apps for video or for photos weren't as viable a few years ago as they are now. Some information or some applications for getting information or for doing text-to-speech or speech-to-text weren't as viable a few years ago, but are more viable now. So I have a list of applications that I have ideas that I've come up with, and I look at see what ones are technically viable and look like they would hit with what's socially interesting right now. So it's like any other business. When you're looking at how you're going to, you have to look at how you're going to sell it. So if you can't see how you're going to sell it, or if you can't see how the general public would like it or would want it, then sometimes it doesn't make sense. I've got ideas for apps that are massive that I just, honestly, the only reason I haven't built them is because I don't want to just do that. Like, I don't want to just make a company out of this thing and do that. So I build the things that that inspire me, or the things that I have feedback from my users that say, hey, we really want this, or we really want that. Or I look at the way the marketplaces are trending, and I say, hey, listen, these type of apps are big right now. Let's build some apps that expand and extrapolate on this concept or this general group of concepts, especially with games. If, let's say, word puzzle games are really big, then I'll try and come up with a couple of word puzzle games and put them out and hopefully ride that particular wave to a certain modicum of success. Apps for other people. Yes, I have written apps for other people, and given the right impetus, I do occasionally do it. It just depends on the circumstance.
Okay. So let's take ones that we're talking about this screen here. Tom, our buddy Tom here says, so for this screen, the donate screen, would it make sense to add a feedback option, because you always are trying to get feedback from the users, if the user did not want to donate? So if they cancel, would you maybe ask them why they didn't want to donate, or would that be too intrusive, too obnoxious?
It's an interesting thought, because like putting a button at the bottom, no, I don't want to donate. But the thing is that if you put a button that says no, I don't want to donate, you're sort of leading them to say no, I don't want to donate. Um, maybe if they push the X, maybe having something that pops up, but it might be a little obtrusive. It might be, I mean, I don't know. Haven't really thought about it that extensively. Um, I've I've never really wanted to say, hey, why wouldn't you give me money? I'd be more likely to say, hey, why wouldn't you give this app a good rating?
Right.
Because money is more of a personal thing, right? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah, that makes sense.
for
Like
me, it
as
would
a
be sort of more uncomfortable. I'd rather have them say, well, why don't you like it? Tell me why you hate me. Don't, not saying, why won't you give me $1?
right. Yeah, as a user, I think that might be a little uh, in your face.
Yeah,
Um,
I think so too.
talking about feedback, so two questions: does your feedback come in through email or is it built into the app? And second is, do you have some guidelines to make the feedback process really simple? In my experience, I find the feedback mechanism not that easy.
Yeah, I'm looking for ways to improve the feedback mechanism too, because I still I use rely on email a fair bit, and so I have an application or a game where you get free coins if you give me feedback about the app, and I get probably 1,000 emails a week that are just groups of letters with spaces in between because it's people trying to game the app, which sucks, but I'm perfectly happy that they're doing it because for every 1,000 of those emails I get, those are people playing my game longer and paying me more money in ads, so that's fine. And for every 1,000 of those emails I get one that gives me a really good idea, or that gives me some really good feedback, and that's more valuable than you know than the money that the other people have paid me. So, um, I mean, while it's kind of annoying to deal with, it's still more than happy to do it as part of. I think it's part of playing this particular game.
All right, and
If
back
I do come up with a better feedback mechanism, I'll make sure I let you know.
back to when you're thinking about ideas. Chris asked, are most of your apps the kind that don't depend on a big services infrastructure or website presence? Because you're writing them so quickly and so getting them out there, that would obviously slow you down if you had to have all these services on the back end and marketing websites and all that kind of stuff too.
Well, so this is the thing where reusable libraries come into play. I can make an application that takes multiples of RSS feeds and create the app that the RSS component of it. If the data is coming in through RSS, that component takes me less than a minute to implement because I've already got it built in a library, and I literally have to just paste in a resource file what the addresses are, and then the UI would be the UI for whatever data. So similar, there are a lot of standard types of data that you can get in different APIs. Custom APIs tend to take an awful lot longer. I did an app for Slack that was very very time intensive because of the API usage. So I sort of shuffle my time between doing intensive apps like that and ones that are less intensive as far as using other people's APIs. And that way I can even out the return on investment so that I can have, it's a business when it comes down to it. It's making sure that I'm doing things that offer high value as well as things that offer me the ability to make money more quickly.
Yeah. So he was Chris saying. So do you tend to avoid things like user login management, and collaborative games, and basically being all that server side logic that you'd have to do to coordinate that kind of stuff? Are most of your apps local devices, maybe kind of plug into a couple, like you said, RSS and things like that?
Well, there's a number of my apps that are definitely local focused. A large number of them. I do have, and I am building a larger infrastructure of my own that allows me to have more background or back end an integrated app, especially gaming, that allows me to have things like leaderboards and comparatives and friends and all of these different things, and also playing games directly against somebody else. So I'm building an infrastructure out for that because I have a large number of games and apps that I want to use that for. I have a few other apps that are fairly intensive in being able to share data across a group of, like a private group of people that I built my own infrastructure for as well. But those things tend to be, like I said, they tend to be the ones that take a fair bit more time, which is one of the reasons why I invested more time in doing the gaming one, because I can then utilize that in many different games. And so I can create, my own structure of what I want to do. There's also a lot of other great tools and utilities and different different services out there that you can take advantage of. You just have to watch how you monetize to make sure that you're properly covering any expenses they incur.
All right, so I'm going to start back at the top of the questions now. John, hopefully John's still around. Any recommendations for which ad providers to use in different parts of the world? So USA, UK, Europe, Nigeria, China, Russia, etc.
Yeah, that ends up being a fun thing. That's a conversation that you should reach out to me for, because that's too long to get into here. There's a lot of different factors. There's platforms that you're approaching. There's regions. There's whether it's desktop, mobile. There's a number of different factors. But yeah, there are a bunch of different providers that I use depending on regionality. Also, one of the things that I didn't mention in using the ads is that even once you put an ad control in your app, just putting the ad control in your app is not the end of it. You have to manage that particular ad control or that particular advertising account so that it's properly motivating the user. The interesting thing about it, back to when I was talking about ads being valuable property, one of the things you can do to make your app a very, very valuable property is utilize the categories in the ads and the structure of how they would appeal to users to help your users want to click on the ads occasionally so that they go out of your app. And I know it sounds kind of counterintuitive, but if users are occasionally clicking on the ads to go out of your app, that makes those ads much more valuable to the ad provider. And therefore, your eCPM goes up a fair bit. You become much more valuable property. Now, you can do that simply by following a number of different, sort of standard and fairly common sense ideas. One is that seasonally, looking at ads that will affect better in different seasons. If you have an application that is very, very popular in the summer, putting in ads that would appeal to people's summer activities, so ad categories that would appeal to people's summer activities, is more likely to have them click on one of the apps or click on one of the ads to go out of it, and therefore earn you a lot more money. You make a lot more money from the clicks than you do from just the impressions, and also the more clicks that happen, the more valuable your impressions are as well.
Okay. Are there any tips for dealing with people who go into airplane mode to disable apps while running your app?
Yeah, so I have a couple of different things that I've done. I actually track in certain apps if the money is being made from the ads and they're trying to get free coins. I tend to offer a number of ways to get free coins for different games that have that sort of mechanism in them. And if in all of those, I've started tracking how often there's network connectivity versus how often there isn't network connectivity. And if I find that there's a higher volume of non-network connectivity, then it sort of gives you a choice. Do you write that user off, or do you tell them that it needs network access? Um, I have some games where there is a leaderboard in it specifically, and the only reason the leaderboard's in it is so that I can tell them they need network access in order to properly play the game. So there are some things you can do, and in some cases it makes sense. There are going to be people that game the system. And this is actually the funny thing. You will always have people that game the system. I have purposely started putting out ways to cheat my apps for people to earn free coins in certain apps that I have so that they get the coins and play longer, and I make more money from them. I make way more money from some of these people that I know are using these cheats because I track them than I would have made if they bought the coins I've given them away they've gotten from the cheats for free. And that is, I mean, people are going to cheat the system. So what you need to do is you need how to figure out how to use that cheating propensity against them. I make sure that the cheats only work for the whole time that they're network connected. If they go into airplane mode, the cheat goes away and all the coins they earn from the cheat go away, or there's a number of different things that you can do. But it's all about thinking about it and deciding whether the cheat is costing you enough money, and this goes towards tracking and understanding the user base. But if the cheat's costing you enough money to make it worthwhile to fight against it, be smarter than them. And it's not hard because usually they are motivated to try and, like I said, I've got users that'll send me. I had a user the other night that sent me probably about 35 emails in one night to get the free coins. But I knew that when they were doing that they had to be connected, because in order to do the feedback, they couldn't get the free coins unless they were connected to the network. So they were paying me all the way through.
Good idea. Yeah, so we're going really long here. Let's try to blow through these questions quickly.
Like I said, I'm happy to spend as much time with this as you want.
Do you always use the same ad platform? Presumably, you can only use one platform per app.
Oh God, no. I often use 3 or 4
per app, or
in the same app. Yeah. And so the interesting thing is, when we were talking, the other person was talking about using ads in different countries. Different types of ads appeal to different people, and different in-app purchases and layouts and things like that appeal to different cultures. And when you get down to apps that make a fair bit of money in different areas of the world, you look and see what is your most viable downloads, your most viable money-making groups, and then this all goes towards using your analytics properly. But when you do that, I have certain apps that will show ads in some cultures and not show any ads in other cultures, because that culture I found has reacted unfavorably to ads in that particular app. In other apps, that culture is fine with ads, but in this particular game or type of scenario, they are very, very negative towards the app. So I literally go, you know what, in that area, I make enough in-app purchases, it's okay, I'm going to get rid of the ads, and the ads just don't even work for that region. Now, in other cases, I show ads for some categories in some areas of the world and other categories in others. Prime example, if you have an application that's being used all over the world, and half of the world's in winter and half of the world's in summer, well, it doesn't make sense to show them all the same ads, because the ads themselves, some of them will be geared towards things that are probably more winter enticing. So in the winter, people play time waster games, they play solitaire games, card games, puzzle games, all sorts of things. In the summer, they use more messaging, they use more, how do I find things, how do I go places, how do I get things? They're searching, they're looking, they're finding, they're going. So I will literally have ad controls that have, let's say, 2 ads from, Microsoft Pub Center. 2 Pub Center ads. One set for one category, one set for another category, both in the same app, and are being shown differently on different sides of the planet because it makes sense. And again, it's utilizing the ads and utilizing the tools that we have to hopefully get the best return for our investment. And I found that actually has started to become much more lucrative than I thought it was going to.
Good. Okay. It says you've talked a lot about optimizing apps to maximize monetization, but this all depends on having people use the apps in the first place. Do you have any advice for acquiring users, or can you talk about how you get people to use your apps?
So there are a number of different things that you can do to try and get people to notice your app in the first place. There are a number of different, for all the platforms, there's a number of different websites, there's a number of different online magazines that will review your app happily and give you feedback on it and help you present you to other users. The stores, unfortunately, the stores seem to be almost the worst place to find apps nowadays. They're so bloated, they're so full, they're so, in most cases, badly designed that it can be very, very difficult. Setting up things that allow users to search and find things, utilizing keywords. The description in your app actually goes farther towards declaring how you return in a search based on words that are in the description than the keywords do in some platforms. And so you've really got to experiment. A lot of this is a bit of trial and error and a bit of sort of push and shove to try and find out exactly what's working the best on the platform that you're targeting. Now, reviews are a great thing. Pushing out features regularly. So I can't stress enough that if you're trying to make an application that's going to make money, your best bet is to write the minimum viable product. So something that does the basic function of the app, and then get it out there. Get users' feedback as quickly as possible. Put things out on Twitter. If you are a developer and you don't have a Twitter account, you don't have a Facebook account that you use for development, right there you're losing two big avenues of advertising. Putting a Facebook page up for your app can be incredibly valuable, and occasionally posting to it, and just by the sheer fact that it becomes more searchable through search engines like Google is an incredibly valuable thing. So if someone's looking for a card game, sometimes people will look in the store. Other times, you'd be surprised how many users are just using Google to find apps. And it can be very, very surprising how valuable that can be, because they get a little annoyed by the store. So if they go, I want a card game, they type card game into the Apple Store. It's not the same experience as if they type card game for my iPhone in Google. They'll get a different experience. So look at the different ways of bringing your app to the users, and be inventive. There's nothing wrong with trying something interesting or different.
All right, let's see. Any legal issues with not having a currency on your donate page there? Especially if you're talking about different countries, things like that?
No, because if you look at the bottom it says prices in CAD.
So Canadian, and I assume as soon as you press it, you're going to get the native prompt.
Currency,
again,
whatever the region is set for, yes.
Do you really want to do that? So yeah, you should get that.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you focus on Windows apps. Is that a decision based on the return on investment of time, or less competition on the platform versus iOS and Android, or something else?
It's a little bit of everything. I've written applications for all the platforms, and I find that the return on investment on Windows is about 30 to 1. So I'm able to, the tools are fantastic. There's challenges with the platform, there's challenges with the store, but there's challenges with all the stores. There's challenges with all the platforms that you're going to have. I found that when I started seeing people putting out ads for their iPhone apps on the television ads, I was like, well, I don't think I want to go television ad money. So I tried. I started out on Windows Phone, just like you said, because there wasn't the competition. And the interesting thing that I found is that the Windows Phone users tend to be very similar to the iOS users, in as they are willing to spend money on the apps, and they are less likely to be trying to hack and crack and cheat. Um, my big problem that I had with Android was my last app that I put on Android was available re-engineered under someone else's name within 24 hours of putting it in the store, and after a couple of months of work, that really, really annoyed me. So I find that I get reasonable pay for the money that I put, or for the effort that I put into it, and I've been very happy with it. I'm very, very happy with it.
So kind of like the big fish in the little pond, you're able to get a lot more users because you have the best app in that particular category, kind of.
Well, for example, this particular Don't Step. So this is the interesting thing, is that this particular app, the Don't Step on the White Tile, when I put this in the store, there were 13 other Don't Step on the White Tile apps in the Windows Phone store, but there are 132 in the iPhone store.
Nice.
So, excuse me, sorry. I didn't mute the microphone.
Let's see. Do you have a team working for you, or is it just you?
Just me and my schizophrenic self.
All right. And two questions that kind of go together. Any recommendation to prevent re-engineering of your app, and what tools do you use to obfuscate your code and protect your property? Kind of the same question there.
So there's a couple of different tools that you can use for obfuscating your code. One of the things that I found is that the way that Windows Phone handles it, it's less necessary than I found. Android for me was the worst experience because it's very easy to get into things in Android. iOS is a little harder, but Windows Phone has been actually surprisingly good, which is something I wouldn't have thought I would have said when I got into it. So there are a number of different tools. The bigger thing is making sure that you're securing the data that you're storing on the phone and the data that you're passing through things. But those are standard, fairly standard across all the platforms. You pretty much have to do that as well, and all of the same options apply. Different types of encryption and different types of encoding. I'd have to look and see what I'm using right now for obfuscation, because I know I've changed it a couple of times. I know that the things that worked better tend to, I think they've changed a couple of different times. So if you want to reach out to me and get that information, I'll be happy to send you a link.
Yeah, and for anybody looking for Atley's email is down there at the bottom of his slide.
Yep.
Another question. I'm currently building some apps, but just working up my mobile skills, doing some classic apps like tip calculator, flashlight, etc. Do you see any harm in doing this, or do you recommend a better approach?
Not at all. My first 100 apps were all just very basic things that used one or two features of the SDKs and allowed me to explore on a very focused way how different components worked and how different parts of the UI functioned and how different parts of the devices and the features of the platform worked. And what that allowed me to do is it allowed me to create a really great library. It doesn't do any harm as long as while you're doing it, you're making a library of reusable components up. So making sure that the code that you do with things, anything that I think I might use ever again gets put into my central library. So to give you an example, the app that I showed you, Tartan, when I built it, it is so reusable that when I'm converting it to Windows 10, all I have to do is the UI. That's all I have to do, and most of that's also convertible as well. So all of the logic code, all of the business logic code, all of the API code, all of the service code, Everything is fully reusable. And when I created my first RSS app, I created something that allowed me to put the RSS components together right in my library. So I find that if you're doing those small apps, they can be very, very helpful. And what you should be doing is doing it so that you can reuse as much of those things as possible, because then you'll be able to build very efficient, feature-rich apps very quickly and provide really cool experiences.
Okay, and just a couple more here. Let's see. I think you kind of covered this, so if you want to cover it just quickly, what's the impact of app engine optimization on your monetization? So filling out all the description and the images and things like that in the actual app stores.
You're talking about the store information?
Yeah, the metadata, basically.
Metadata, yeah.
Optimizing
the metadata so the metadata can be an expensive component of multilingualism, especially when it comes to multiple screenshots, multiple descriptions, different components. But I find that when I look at it, again, this is a business, so when I look at it, I look at what the return on investment is between doing something and how valuable is the time that I'm going to spend on creating those new descriptions and the screenshots and the new graphics and the new images in the store versus not making it specific to a particular language. And if it's worth the effort to do the additional languages, the metadata component doesn't really tend to factor as negatively into the monetization as you would expect.
Okay, so let's see. Any recommendations for which ad providers to use in locations where connectivity is expected to be very hit or miss?
Okay, so if connectivity is going to be hit or miss, ad providers, one of the things I always do is I always make my own rotator control, so where I can try to reach out to more than one ad provider in an area or a region. And then if there is poor network connectivity, rather than having it just fail out and not show any ad at all, I have it show an ad for one of my own apps. That way, the space is continually used. The UI is not negatively or adversely affected by a gap space in it that the ad control would leave if it doesn't show anything. And also, you find that people are less likely, as the person that asked earlier, less likely to try to game it by putting it in airplane mode all the time. So you'd have to look at what ad providers are available in the local region, but also, like I said, create some sort of rotator or utilize a rotator control that allows you to put in ads for your own apps. That's the other way that you can also help to motivate people to download your own apps or to get people to install your apps, is using one of these ad trade-off providers, or at the very least, you should always have apps or ads for your own apps in your app, and in the about page of your app, always have something that links to your own store account. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, and I think we had time for one more 12:30. So we're already half an hour over, so we're gonna have to finish up here.
But okay, I don't mind. I'd put this to 1 o'clock anyways. So.
Yeah, we got to finish up. So, what tools do you use for market research when you're starting a new app or validate an idea you have?
My wife is a fantastic researcher. I would have to check with her because she's the one that does a lot of the analysis on validating applications, and then sometimes I override her and sometimes I don't. We look at trends in the marketplace, so if we see an app idea, we start to look for other apps that are doing it or something that's similar to it, and if we don't find anything like it on the platform we're working on, then we look at the other platforms to see what they've got. And then we have a group of users that we, like I said, again, creating this relationship with your users, it does give you the ability to reach out occasionally and go, hey, would you like something that did this? Or hey, would it be cool if you could do this with your device? And I usually obfuscate the idea a little bit so that I'm not literally giving all of my, idea out to any one particular person. But I might say, hey, what if you could do this with your device? And they would say, oh, that's cool. And if I get enough positive feedback, then I will, see what it would look like to build an MVP and put it out on the marketplace.
All right. So, like I said, we're going to finish up. Thank you so much, Atley. If anybody
No
has
problem.
any other questions, again, Atley said feel free to contact him on Twitter. You see his Twitter handle down there in the bottom left, or
Mm-hmm.
at email, or you can just email me at Xamarin University, and I will forward it on as well. Now, everyone remember these sessions, these guest lectures are recorded. They're exclusively available for Xamarin University students. They'll be up on our site as soon as we get a chance to encode it and properly upload it and everything. So hopefully in the next week or so, we'll get this up. And you can go back. There's lots of information here. This is definitely something I think you're probably going to want to watch and go through again when you're actually